I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Poultry Health Today, and with me is Dr. Robert Beckstead. He is Associate Professor for North Carolina State University. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
I want to talk with you about parasites in turkeys, and we'll get to the big elephant in the room, Histomonas, in just a moment. But you were talking earlier about two others that are causing a lot of health problems in turkeys.
Yeah, so my lab works on 3 different flagellated protozoa that affect turkey health. The first one is Histomonas, which causes blackhead disease. The second one is Cochlosoma, and Cochlosoma is a parasite that causes turkeys to fail to gain weight. And then the last one that we've looked at is Tetratrichomonas, and this parasite is of unknown virulence, but its levels seem to increase when birds have enteric distress.
And do they all show up at the same time?
So in most cases, birds are positive for Tetratrichomonas. We see about 70% of the birds in the field, whereas Cochlosoma and Histomonas are a little bit more sporadic in their appearance in turkey flocks.
And what about the age of the flocks? When do you normally see these parasites?
So the age of the flock doesn't really appear to be a factor.
So are some operations going to be more susceptible to these parasites than others?
Yeah, so for blackhead disease, Histomonas, which is fragile in the environment, is actually carried in the egg of a cecal nematode, Heterachus gallinarum. And so chicken flocks are known reservoirs for Heterachus as well as for Histomonas. So the closer a turkey flock is to a chicken flock, you're going to increase your chances of getting blackhead disease. For Tetratrichomonas, it seems like all poultry species are susceptible, and so it's really a matter of if you're near a flock that's positive, it's going to increase your chances. And with Cochlosoma, we're not quite sure the transmission profile, but this disease is also found in wild birds, and so susceptibility or a reservoir of wild birds in the area can cause flocks to become positive.
So how do you go about managing all of these in a turkey operation? Because there's a lot of moving parts, obviously, and then you get other diseases and co-infections. It's got to be pretty challenging.
That is true. I mean, number one is biosecurity. It's difficult because anything that you bring into the house, right, is going to start off this infection with turkeys. And so biosecurity is number one, especially making sure that the workers on the farm aren't interacting with chickens, right? That's number one. And number two is in terms of having a single-age flock versus a multi-age flock. All those kind of things are going to help reduce your chances of having these diseases. I would say that Histomonas and Cochlosoma are probably having the same economic impact on the industry. Histomonas is just a little bit more scary because you can lose an entire flock, and I think that causes a little more angst than when you just fail to gain weight, but economically it ends up being probably about the same. Tetratrichomonas, we're not sure what the economic impact of it is because we're not quite sure what the disease signs and symptoms are in terms of what it's causing.
And do we have tools for preventing or treating these parasites?
So there are no vaccines or treatments for any of these parasites.
Which makes your life, well, it gives you a lot of job security, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
But what are turkey producers going to do about that? Because I saw a survey last year. Dr. Stephen Clark does a survey in the turkey industry every year about the number one health problems. And often it's Histomonas or some other disease. But this year, they came back and said the biggest problem health-wise in the turkey industry is a lack of medications.
Yeah, the failure to have efficacious drugs or ability to use them is a concern for most poultry producers, I would say, whether it's chicken or turkey. And not only are drugs being removed from the market, but the push from the consumer not to have these in the feed is also making it difficult. And turkeys by nature are kind of a niche market anyways, and so that puts a lot more pressure on the companies. I think really where we're going is looking at gut health. Gut health is some of the things that our lab's been studying, and we've shown that birds that are healthy are less likely to transmit the disease between each other than birds that are sick. There's a lot of natural products that are coming out on the market. We've been testing some of those with some success, but getting the lab model to work in a field model is always difficult. And then lastly, which was one of the presentations we had today, we've begun genetic selection for turkeys that are resistant to blackhead disease and maybe other protozoa. So it may be one of the directions that we need to go is really screening for birds that have the genetic profile to be resistant to these diseases.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that some more, because I think you said in your abstract that something like 5% of the population might have resistance to blackhead. So I guess if you could put that in a bottle and sell it, that would be a great thing.
Yeah, so our lab's working with both of the breeder companies looking for resistance within their flocks. And the great thing with the new technology is that you don't have to have a live bird at the end. Really what you're looking for is identifying those genetic markers that signify that this bird is resistant. So the current trial that we're doing, we just completed screening for birds that are resistant to the disease, and now we're doing the molecular biology and the genetics to identify those markers that companies could use to select for birds that would be resistant in the future.
So based on the research to date, what would be your takeaway messages for producers who are really concerned about these parasites? How do they bring this all together?
So I would say, like we talked about at the beginning, biosecurity is going to really is one of their defenses. And then the second one is actually managing other diseases. So, for instance, our lab has shown that when turkeys are flushing, they're more likely to transmit the parasite Histomonas meleagritis between birds. So if you have a large cocci outbreak, which causes birds to flush and huddle together, you're going to get more transmission of blackhead disease. So if you have one bird that's sick, you have a cocci outbreak, they move them together, now you could have a blackhead problem on top of your cocci problem. So really dealing with a lot of the health issues that are not the parasites may be able to help us reduce the impact of these flagellated parasites.
And is there anything nutritional that they can do?
So that's other research that's going on in our lab, and it falls along the same thing. So things that are added to the diet that cause the birds to flush, sometimes increasing the salt level, right, which is also going to loosen the birds up. Those kind of things right there, we think are pushing the rate of transmission that's occurring within flocks of these parasites.
All right, well, I know the industry certainly appreciates all the good work you're doing on it, and hope you find a solution.
Thank you, and I can't tell you right now how much appreciation I have for the industry, the amount of support that they've given to our lab. Just in the last year, the National Turkey Federation donated $150,000 worth of isolators to help us to move this research forward. So there's a lot of support that we get from the industry.
Awesome. That's the way it should be.
All right, thank you.
All right, we've been talking to Dr. Robert Beckstead. He's Associate Professor at North Carolina State University. Robert, thank you again.
No problem.